These are in listen-only mode.
We're going to talk about the LEED version 4 materials and resources credits today. We're going to get into a bit more detail on the environmental product declarations credit, the EPD's credit. I just wanted to let everyone know that we're going to take questions throughout via the chat window, and we'll respond to all those at the end. And that after our talk today, we'll be preparing an email with links to the recordings and slides for everyone in the next day or so. My name is John Jewell. I'm a senior consultant with ThinkStep. I'm also joined by my colleague Maggie Wildmauer, who's going to be presenting some of the detail, and Rick Crawford from GreenWizard is going to talk after Maggie. In terms of a bit of context and laying the groundwork, LEED version 4 is a fairly substantial update to LEED 2009. In previous versions, project teams could earn LEED points by checking boxes for recycled content, regional materials, and other single attributes. LEED version 4 is emphasizing transparency and reporting, and so that's why we're seeing new MR credits, and we're getting into details on how to achieve those credits. One other point I'd like to make is that the deadline for switching over from LEED 2009 to version 4 has been extended into October of 2016, though a lot of manufacturers and project teams are trying to get ahead of the curve and prepare for LEED version 4 in this interim time period. So the next thing I wanted to mention was that those of you who've known us for a while noticed earlier this year we've rebranded as ThinkStep. We did this to better reflect our company's mission, that is to help our customers succeed sustainably. We also wanted to celebrate the launch of our new generation software platform called ThinkStep 1, and this platform streamlines the collection and reporting of your company's energy, environmental compliance, EH&S, and sustainability data. So for those of you who don't know us, we work across the value chain of the built environment. So we work with raw material suppliers, manufacturers, architects, designers, contractors, owners, and it gives us a comprehensive view for transparency along the whole building's life cycle. So we work with all these different pieces in the value chain to create product declarations, supplier engagement programs, etc. So the last piece of this I just wanted to share was that our suite of products as part of the ThinkStep 1 platform includes everything from lifecycle assessment and product redesign through environmental compliance and supplier questionnaires and sustainability programs, all the way through the more traditional EH&S energy management side of things. And all of this is built on over 25 years of collecting data across many sectors of industry, and that's sort of who we are and what we do. So now I'll hand it over to Maggie to discuss the details of the credit.
Thanks, John. So today we're discussing the Materials and Resources credit for Building Product Disclosure and Optimization, focusing on environmental product declarations. The intent of this credit is to encourage the use of products and materials for which verified life cycle information is available, as well as to encourage the selection of environmentally preferable products to be used in your building. So just so we're all on the same page, let's take a step back and look at what LCA is. LCA, or Life Cycle Assessment, quantifies the environmental impacts from things like material and energy consumption and the direct release of emissions throughout the life cycle of a product. This includes everything from raw material extraction, intermediate materials manufacturing, finished product manufacturing, transportation to the consumer, use of the product, And finally, at end of life, it accounts for any recycling that may occur, and ultimately, the final disposal of the product after its use. An LCA isn't just used in the building and construction sector. Many other sectors that touch the built environment value chain make use of it. This includes a lot of upstream raw material suppliers that you may have heard of, such as the ones listed on this slide. Now let's dig into the credit. There's some key terms that are important when you discuss the EPD credit. The first is Product Category Rule, or PCR. This is a guideline written for one or more specific product categories that specifies the methodology for background life cycle assessment and the information that needs to be included in the Environmental Product Declaration. The Life Cycle Assessment, or LCA, is the underlying analysis of the environmental impacts of a specific product, which is governed by the applicable PCR. An applicable PCR is one that specifically addresses your product's category. And finally, Environmental Product Declaration, or EPD, is essentially a summary of the LCA. It reports specific environmental impacts along with other information specified by the PCR. There are three parties involved in the creation of an EPD: the manufacturer, the LCA expert, and the program operator. First, the manufacturer or industry association will initiate the EPD process by reaching out to an LCA expert, internal or external to their organization. The LCA expert will help to identify the PCR relevant to the product and then create the LCA model using primary data collected by the manufacturer. This data includes material and energy inputs and waste and direct emission outputs, typically on a facility level. The LCA model will be created in conformance with ISO 14044 as well as the relevant PCR. Once the LCA model is complete, the EPD and LCA report can be created. At this stage, the manufacturer will need to provide any technical information required by the PCR. They will also review the subsequent LCA report and EPD to ensure that it's accurate. The LCA expert will then coordinate with a program operator of the manufacturer's choosing. A program operator facilitates the review and verification of both the background LCA report and the EPD itself. Once an EPD is verified to be conformant with the PCR as well as ISO 14025, the program operator will publish and host it on their website. Program operators play another crucial role in this whole process by developing and publishing PCRs, which are a prerequisite to having an EPD. Let's go over the specific credit language now. The first option within the credit is to have 20 different permanently installed products from at least 5 different manufacturers that have one of these 3 declarations. Either a product-specific LCA report that is conformant with ISO 14044. So this means it's undergone critical review by a third party. These count as 1/4 of a product, so you would need 80 reports to be able to get this credit. Second declaration option is an industry average EPD, which the manufacturer of the specific product being installed in the building must have directly participated in. These EPDs count as half a product, so you would need 40 different industry average EPDs to get the credit. And finally, the product-specific EPD is one specific to a particular manufacturer. This counts as a full product, so you would only need 20 product-specific EPDs to be able to earn the credit. The EPD itself is a document that contains information about the product and its environmental impacts. These impacts can include global warming potential and ozone depletion potential, among others listed on this slide. It will also include a description of the LCA process, which includes data sources, an overview of the methodology, and any assumptions or limitations within the LCA itself. The EPD will also document the review and verification process. On the left, you see an example of what an EPD could look like. The second half of this credit is called multi-attribute optimization. A point can be earned for the use of products that demonstrate a reduction in environmental impact as compared to an industry average. Therefore, both an industry average EPD or LCA report must exist along with the product-specific declaration. These permanently installed products must account for 50% of the total cost of all permanently installed products. Additionally, products sourced within 100 miles of the project are valued at 200% of their cost. In this case, sourced refers to extraction, manufacturing, and purchase within 100 miles of the site. Finally, the structure and enclosure materials may not contribute to more than 30% of the value of the compliant building product, so that 20% has to come from elsewhere in the building. So to review, the intent of the credit is both to encourage the use of products for which life cycle information is available, and also to use that life cycle information to select environmentally preferable products for the buildings. With that, let me hand it over to Rick.
All right, thanks, Maggie. For those of you not familiar with GreenWizard, we are the building product management solution for both the design and construction community and the building product manufacturer community. So we save designers and contractors time and money through our collaboration tools, and we provide building product manufacturers with an integrated marketing program that marries marketing, analytics, and sales tools that gives them a demonstrable return on investment. So these collaboration tools create greater workflow efficiencies, which help our design and construction customers maximize profits. They can come to GreenWizard to simply search, evaluate, and compare materials. They can collaborate firm-wide, even across offices, by selecting products for their private digital library, where they can create custom labels, perform internal usage and reviews on products, and even see which products their firm uses most often. They can also invite in the entire project team, even those outside of their organization, for enhanced project team collaboration, and take advantage of a variety of tools. We have custom product trackers, transparency trackers, and LEED V4 MR and EQ trackers as well. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, these design and construction professionals are coming to GreenWizard to search, evaluate, compare materials, so that they can make the most informed and ultimately responsible building product choices possible on their projects. One of the challenges our design and construction customers face is the amount of time they spend on researching materials and where to find information related to transparency and LEED version 4. So we make it very easy for them to find what they're looking for by making transparency information available, accessible, and in a centralized location. Next slide, please. In fact, we're the only software solution on the market that has the rules for LEED V4 already built into our search page, and tools that automatically track the material and calculate the LEED points. As you see here on your screen, you can simply check a box. If you're looking for EPDs, check that, and it'll pull back those products that have environmental product declarations. So, in short, we take much of the headache associated with the finding, evaluating, and comparing, and even selecting materials, as well as tracking those on their LEED V4 projects. Next slide, please. So GreenWizard's integrated marketing program provides building product manufacturers with a return on investment and helps our customers make the business case for transparency. We are one of the only marketing platforms that allows building product manufacturers to differentiate themselves by way of responsible product attributes by calling them out in their banner ads. We provide a platform that enables our integrated marketing customers to enhance their brand equity and customer loyalty through these banner ads and education and awareness article opportunities. And through our analytics, we're able to provide our integrated marketing customers with a return on marketing investment and also insights that can drive their responsible certification label and declaration strategy. Next slide, please. So what's the opportunity here is currently only 27% of the building product manufacturers have responsible product certifications, labels, and declarations listed on our sites. We have about 1,400 manufacturers listing products with us, to give you an idea. Next slide, please. But as a result of that, we're seeing in Q3 2015 that 91% of all products selected into projects included these responsible certifications, labels, and declarations. So those that have the manufacturers that have them and market them and they're found available are seeing a clear return, and we're helping them to make that business case. Next slide, please. So in summary, GreenWizard helps design and construction professionals save time and money through a variety of our collaboration tools, and helps building product manufacturers make the business case for transparency, as well as us being able to provide them with a return on investment. So at this time, I'll turn it back over, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rick. So I just wanted to remind everyone that if you have questions, please type those into the chat window. We'll respond to those as we have time. I also wanted to let everyone know that you should come visit us in Greenbuild in DC in a couple of weeks. This is where our booths will be, and we'd love to see you. Also, just wanted to let folks know that in the follow-up emails you'll be receiving, you can get access to a free pass to the Greenbuild Expo. So look for that, and I will go ahead and take a couple of questions. So I'll give this first one to Maggie. The question was, how long does it take from start to finish to create an EPD?
Good question. We usually budget around 6 months. It can be faster or slower depending on data collection. Generally, data collection is the single biggest delay of an EPD, mainly because it's a lot of information that you may not have been asked in the past, so you don't necessarily readily know where it is within your organization.
And I'll add to that is that we can often get a project team who's really dedicated to collecting the data and working on it, and get the data collection finished in 2 months and finish the whole process in 4 months if folks are available and committed to working on it. But it can happen that it drags out for longer if the data is not readily available, or if people get pulled onto other projects which are their day-to-day job, let's say. So another question was about PCRs, product category rules. So how many PCRs exist now? I'll take a crack at this one. I would wager to say that there are dozens of PCRs around the world. So oftentimes PCRs are created by an industry association in partnership with a program operator. We're in North America, so we often think in terms of North American products and their industry associations, but what we find when we're starting an EPD is often someone in Europe or in Asia has done EPDs before, and we can take their PCR, or the program operator can take their PCR, make a few modifications, and turn it into a North American sort of regional specific PCR. Okay, here's another question. Where is the industry average found, and how do I know if my company is better or worse than the industry average? Do you want to take this one, Maggie?
Sure. So like all EPDs, the EPD itself will be hosted on the program operator's website. You can also check out existing industry association websites where they will often post their own EPDs. Generally, you will have participated in it to be able to reference it and compare your company to the industry average. The comparison comes in when we're looking at key impact indicators, so things like global warming potential, ozone depletion potential, smog formation, etc. That's where if the number is lower in your product, then you are showing an improvement over the industry average.
Thanks, Maggie. I've got a question here for Rick. Are only individual manufacturer or product LCAs and EPDs available in GreenWizard, or do you offer industry average or general materials in your system?
So you can list, if you have an industry average EPD, you could list that with your product and supply that supporting documentation in GreenWizard. I mean, the focus of this webinar series, is transparency, but there's also other performance attributes that you can list on our site beyond just transparency. So the answer to your question is yes, you could list an industry average and just attach that supporting documentation.
Great. I've also got a request to switch back to the slide on option 1, just for folks to be able to digest some of that a little bit more. Okay, thanks. Here are a couple of questions about the costs of EPDs. I'll take a crack at this one, and Maggie, you can chime in. So what we often find is that if a company is interested in doing their first EPD and they are going to have a lot of sort of first-time investment in an EPD program, they're going to need to spend somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $30,000 on their first EPD because they have to collect all the data, and an LCA model must be built, an EPD must be written. This is kind of a range that we see for a single product at a company who's never done one before. If the company is participating in an industry association project, the costs can be dramatically reduced because all the members would share the costs across, and they could be below $10,000 even for an EPD. So if you have a very complex product, or if you want multiple EPDs, there are also a wide range of costs, and it depends on the complexity and the number of products. But if you're curious, we can help you better understand what it would look like for your situation.
And I would just add that economies of scale very much factors into EPDs. So keep that in mind when you're trying to decide on how many to do and when to do them.
Great. So there was another question or two about comparisons of your product against the industry average. So this was a question: is it necessary to have participated in the industry average if you want to reference it? So for example, if you wanted to claim option 1, this industry average EPD, or perhaps even option 2, if you wanted to claim that you were better than the industry average, must you have participated in it? The answer is yes. You have to have been part of the industry association work where the industry average was conducted and published. Okay, let's see. Here's another one. What makes PCRs comparable? I've seen indications that they can produce a wide variance in the LCA results or the EPDs. Maggie, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So the PCR, what it does is makes a lot of decisions about the LCA that the LCA practitioner would usually have to decide on. So things like how to deal with recycled content, cutoff criteria, things like that that are generally made by the LCA practitioner. These are defined within the PCR. With that said, if the same underlying data isn't used to create one EPD versus another, then there are some issues with comparability. So generally we like to recommend that within an industry you may want to stick with the same underlying data. So if you work with an industry average EPD, then get your company specific one using kind of the similar model, and that way you can ensure comparability. But generally the idea with the PCR is that it takes a lot of the decision making out of the way for the practitioner, and therefore there's a higher chance of comparability across the EPDs.
I'd like to add another note about option 2 and showing demonstrated improvement for additional credit. If you could switch to that slide, please. So I said earlier that if you want to show an improvement against an industry average, you must have participated in that industry average. I also wanted to clarify that if you have an EPD that you published a while ago and you wanted to demonstrate improvement against your own baseline, that is an acceptable pathway, and that would be especially relevant if your industry hasn't yet gotten together to do an industry association project. So that's a good way to achieve this option 2. And there was another question about how long are LCAs and EPDs valid. So if you have an LCA that's several years old, do you need a new LCA to produce that EPD? The question is, or the answer is sort of dependent on the program operator. They would specify the validity of an EPD. Most are in the range of 5 years. What we would recommend is fairly often, much more often than every 5 years, if you've done an LCA, you should confirm that your main manufacturing and raw material inputs haven't changed substantially, and you should also update your background data. So the information on your electricity grids, the raw materials themselves, your transportation emissions, a lot of these things can change from year to year and have fairly large effects on your LCA, even if nothing in the way you make your product has substantially changed. Let's see. Here's another question. Can you compare your EPD to the industry average if the PCR is different? In the context of LEED, I don't believe you can, but I'll have to confirm that and get back to you. I would assume that if the PCRs are different, you can certainly publish your EPD and get LEED credit for it, but in terms of option 2 and showing an improvement against that industry baseline, I don't believe that you could use that if the PCR were different. Maggie, do you know anything there?
Not any more than you do. I would say I would echo the same thing, that probably not, but it's certainly something worth looking into.
All right. I think we're about out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Just wanted to remind everyone to look for that email follow-up with our recording, the slides, and a free pass to the Greenbuild Expo.